Welcome to the Forward Miami Show. I'm your host, Damian Pardo. For all of you that don't know Forward Miami, that's the number 4, WARD, Forward Miami. We're a local nonprofit. We specialize with diversity and inclusion issues. And I am very happy today to have as my guest Jason Jenkins, who's a senior vice president with the Miami Dolphins, does a ton of work in the local community, and we are very grateful to have you here with us.
No, thanks for having me.
No, my pleasure. Jason, I wanted to start off a little bit just talking about the work you do with the Miami Dolphins and what you're currently doing in the community right now.
We're very community focused. I mean, we have this idea that sports can bring about positive change and bring people together. We have a program where we got connected through our Football Unites program. And the whole idea is when we're in a game at Hard Rock Stadium and two of those the winning touchdown against the Patriots or Bills or whatever's going on, you look in the stands, look at social media. It doesn't matter race, gender, sexual orientation, identity, ability, of faith. People can get connected in those moments. And our goal is how can we use our platform to improve relationships, foster understanding, and really experience the soft flow to the diverse community.
So I have to say, you guys do an amazing job as somebody that works with you. And I want to particularly single you out, because I think you have to have a certain kind of personality, you know, that is open to differences and to people, and also like you should run for office because because I think it's very hard, you know, to have a lot of competing kind of priorities. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, you know, like how do you do that?
Now, we're fortunate to have leadership in place that really wants to make an impact and be a steward of this community. Is one thing that our vice chairman and CEO, Tom Garfinkel, has always said, well, I'm not going to be the vice chairman forever. You're not going to be in this role forever. But how can you pay it forward and make sure you're putting a positive impact and using sports as a way to do that? In my family, I've had a lot of different walks of life in my family. I'm African-American. My wife is mixed with Korean and Irish. I have an autistic son. I have my sister is a member of the LGBTQ community, and all these different intersections kind of grew up in my house, and we all were together, not during Thanksgiving dinner or anything like that. We were fighting over meals, but we really were together, and I think that's sort of like shaped me. And I'm fortunate to work in an organization that feels that way as well.
And how did you end up here? Like, how did you end up in this role and this job?
Well, I kind of grew up in the sports and education background. My father was a professional football player with the Houston Oilers, C.L. Whittington. My mother, Mary Clay, was a school educator. So I grew up in a football and education environment, not knowing you can have a career in it besides being a coach or a player.
No wonder you know so much about football. Like, you know everything about football. I know nothing. So
don't sell yourself short, for sure. But for us, I went to Texas Tech University. I said I was on the football team. I didn't play on the football team. I was on the team. I spent about as much time as on the bench as what I'm doing right now for this interview. But kind of getting the chance to go around being in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Lehigh University, Texas Southern University in Houston, where I grew up in, and had opportunity to work in San Francisco with the 49ers and got here in 2009 with the Dolphins.
And you just landed in community development?
Well,
is that something that you specifically, communications and community development, wanted to do?
Well, communications, I started in communications and the journalism aspect of it. I kind of grew up wanting to be a journalist, you know, coming out. But also being sports, just fell in love with sports and that passion and that teamwork and that camaraderie. And for me, I kind of grew into community affairs and I kind of used that football sports mentality in terms of trying to reach out, be a team, have different intersections. And these kind of things grew. And the great thing about our programs is that they're not Miami Dolphins programs. They're like your programs before Miami and working with you and the different organizations we work with. And it was a matter of like not saying this is the Dolphins or this is we're going to tell you what to do in the community. It's more so being open. What do you need? How can we use our platform to bring people together?
That is so powerful, what you just said. And maybe that's why you guys do such a good job of it. How would you help maybe other companies, other corporations have that kind of approach?
Well, it all starts about heart, you know, and it all starts about multiple touch points. I know for us, it's like, we didn't want to buy a table at an event and all of a sudden we support. Support is more so how can we have multiple touch points and also build friendships and relationships, which I felt we've been able to build, here from day one, now, and just being committed, communicative, and also just having a big heart for this community. And being in South Florida, how can you not? I mean, all these different you go 15 minutes in every different direction, and it's a whole nother unique situation, unique community. And that's what I think it's been great because my 3 kids were born here. I got married here as well too. So it's been a great place to be home, but also just to get a chance to experience all these different cultures.
Yeah, no, I'm sure in doing that, in experiencing the different cultures and coming up against, I guess, some of the challenges too.
Mhm.
What are your frustrations like in terms of because that job also has to you have to see a lot of things that don't
Yeah.
necessarily get solved.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's sort of like being able to not to be able to help everything and having to make decisions and priorities. I think like we're fortunate to be in an area that we're able to do a lot and be a stewardess community. When COVID hit, we had the food relief program and we worked with you and Gay 8, throughout that and being intentional, not only of helping people that were at risk from COVID-19 and also lost jobs and resources, but also helping these businesses, these companies, and then working with you and being intentional in terms of where our spending was going to be. And that's something that we learned of, we need to do more of, quite frankly, in terms of being intentional on that front. So it kind of helped us into some minority supplier and diversity programs that really, I think, helped move us forward and even made us stronger coming out of this.
Can you go into some of that detail? Because I think that was amazingly powerful. I'll say that in Little Havana, we did Gay Ocho and Forward Miami. Gay did a lot of the work with just food distribution, just getting food to people who needed it. And we would have lines and cars after cars after cars. People really, really needed it. And you guys stepped up in a big way. How were you able to ramp up so quickly and how were you able to be such a good partner?
But we have a great volunteer base and programs that we've done. And the reality is our vice chairman, Tom Garfinkel, came out and said, like, I want to do something significant. I want to do something long term. So this past June, each day we were doing 1,000 meals over Hard Rock Stadium.
1,000 meals.
Wait
a minute, say that again.
Yeah, 1,000 very good meals through Centerplate, which was our food and beverage provider, and for the long term. So it wasn't going to be like a one-time thing. It wasn't going to be like a week thing. We were committed to a year, but also equally as important, we were going out in the community, working with some of our Football Unite nonprofit partners, including yourself, and saying, where is the need there? But also, how can we help the business and companies that are having to shut their doors, having to have to lay off staff? How can we keep them employed during that time? And we're still doing it now. Unfortunately, the need is still there, but it showed us to be intentional about how we can not only support the community, but also support businesses and people that are dealing with this as well.
And how do you find it? How do you find working within the community to maybe have some of the changes, like, for example, with the vaccine and helping people get access and education and becoming comfortable to take a vaccine if that's what they choose to do?
Mm-hmm.
How do you find working in the community in your role in those kinds of issues that are so important?
Well, we use our stadium as a hub to have COVID testing in our parking lots, but also vaccines. That's something that we were doing throughout, and we obviously feel it's important. And we had Nat Moore, who's one of our alumni and one of our prominent community members, do PSAs. Had a couple other people do PSAs as well, and continue to get that need to help people, get the vaccine and kind of push the positives and not the narratives that sometimes are going out about that. But we felt it was important. We felt it was important through our stadium and having a big distribution hub for it. And we'll continue to work with those efforts to kind of try to raise awareness about it. That's
fantastic. In your time so far, how long have you been in that job specifically?
This is my 4th year in this role in terms of like some of the community.
In that 4-year time frame, what are some of the things you feel have opened your eyes or stuff that maybe you didn't fully understand, but have gained an appreciation? And
the camaraderie of South Florida and the organizations and the groups.
I love hearing that.
Yeah, it's been amazing, especially through this Football Unites program, working with different nonprofits and seeing them support each other and using the Dolphins as a bridge to be able to do that, because they do a lot of amazing work. And getting the chance to take my family to these events. I mean, I think I'm fortunate enough. I mean, football and the communications, and it's a very time-consuming role, but being in a role where my family can see, and it's one of the things that has been shown. And I remember my kids saying, like, it's great that we're able to help people, but it's great to also see people, as well too. Yeah. So I've been very fortunate to be in this role, but also being very fortunate to be in an organization that really makes a potential impact of wanting to be in the community.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. A lot of times we say that Miami has a lot of diversity. We often say that Miami's a salad and Forward Miami tries to be the salad bowl. Like
exactly. That's awesome.
To provide that kind of connection.
We might take that. You see the Dolphins tagline, salad bowls. If you see them at the stadium,
I'll know where it comes from. That's good. But it's nice to hear somebody talk about the good parts, because I do think our community has a lot of good parts.
No question.
You and your organization are one of the ones that really contribute in such a positive way. at the same time, we also know that all the different communities have their own issues. And
Correct.
What do you think is the next step, maybe from where you're at right now, and the kind of services and outreach and support that you're doing in the community? What do you think is a natural outgrowth of some of that?
Well, I think for us, it's communication, continual communication, bringing people together, having these conversations. And for us, working with organizations that know the issues, do the work, and are about humanity and bringing people together, and just trying to elevate that and bring people together. Like for us, we don't profess to say we know all the answers in these spaces, but we do know we have an opportunity and a responsibility to South Florida, a responsibility to our platform to be positive, to bring people together, and kind of show the commonalities of about South Florida and what we do. There's, like you talked about, there's a lot of great work. There's also a lot of work that needs to be done. So we just want to make sure we're doing our part each and every day to push the conversations forward in a positive way, and also just be that force that kind of connects people together.
And you think over time that'll lead to more of the same, and being able to bring, different parts of the community together?
Yeah, but that's our hope. I mean, and I know it's a long journey to be able to do that, but we feel strongly about what South Florida means. I mean, as a person that didn't grow up here and being embraced here, very quickly, and seeing my family embrace it, but also seeing what the organization and what people in the organization, we always hear someone say, I love the Dolphins, I'm a big Dolphins fan. Why aren't you going to the Super Bowl when you go? No, I'm just kidding. Those kind of things. But it's been awesome. And not, to be clear, not just me, I think organizationally, that's something that we take pride in, and that's something we're going to continue to do.
Yeah, I've always been surprised by South Florida. Just even like if we take a current issue right now, the Cuba issue is at the forefront because of what's happening on the streets of Cuba. But that's also such a poorly understood issue locally because, number one, the language barrier. So a lot of the stuff is disseminated in a language that most people can't really, absorb in the same way. You have a ton of people that are culturally huge Dolphin fans, right? And it's just interesting to me that, and I'm using that as an example, but like that, there are probably 25 issues where, we could use a lot more understanding and help jumping these barriers, because those are not our lived experiences. Those are other people's lived experiences.
That's correct.
So how do you make that jump easier?
Well, I mean, it's interesting, and on a smaller level, we do cultural tours. We bring different groups for Football Unite's partners throughout South Florida. And it just so happened a week after some of the protests got bigger and happened, we just happened to have a cultural tour in Little Havana scheduled, and so we had the Asian American Advisory Board, Trayvon Martin Foundation, Islamic Center of Greater Miami, Miami Gardens Police Explorers, and we worked with History Miami, and our partner was Baptist Health through that, and then the Greater Miami Visitors Convention Bureau, to do these tours of South Florida. So we had about 30 to 40 people, and on a smaller level. But the reality is, like, these problems or these issues, they just can't be, these are South Florida. It's not just Cuban. So the fact that we had the Asian American Advisory Board, the fact that we had Miami Gardens Police Explorers, these different organizations, learn more. We did a tour of Little Havana. We did like the regular spots, but we also got the history of each spot. So I think when people understand that these issues are not just a separate issue that they see on TV, that's not connected to them, and they're in these communities, we feel that can bring about understanding, empathy, and change, which are just some of the hallmarks of our program.
Oh, huge. I mean, listen, for sure, we are not doing a good job of listening and telling each other stories.
Right.
I mean, right now in Haiti, we had a president assassinated.
Absolutely.
We have a significant Haitian community here. This is another example of where language and maybe culture are not our lived experiences, but these are our neighbors.
Correct.
And we need to care, and we need to understand, if not for ourselves, just to be a community member and to make this place a better place for all of us. And how did you guys start doing these? I mean, I think that's brilliant, number one. And I think I'm trying to figure out how, for the Miami Dolphins, that cultural tour program fits in.
Well, it was, interestingly enough, we were looking at, getting our rookies and some of our younger players involved in understanding South Florida and, integration. And when we decided to do that, we said, well, it's great. Like, we don't want to be like, I mean, I'm not knocking community events in terms of like, hey, just do these things. It's more so like, we can do community events, but we also need to be in the community.
Right.
And so it started with how can we get our players and our younger players integrated to understand South Florida? And then it was like, oh, hey, well, look at this. Let's get some community. Like, where should we go? Okay, like we're not gonna go like to the tourist traps. We want to like learn South Florida.
Right.
And so working with groups like History of Miami, working with groups like the Greater Convention Bureau, they help develop plans. And then like the Dolphins, quote unquote, celebrity kind of help brand it, but then bringing organizations and bringing youth and bringing different groups together to do that. And it kind of grew. It was not something that we were looking to do,
right?
But I think it's something when you kind of have an idea of trying to bring people together and work with organizations that have the knowledge in that field, then also bring other organizations that could benefit from it. It just kind of grew from there. And that Palace brunch we had was amazing when we went out to the Palace.
Talk a little bit about that.
You know as well. So we got a chance to go by the Rainbow Crosswalk and kind of learn more about the history there and went to the Palace and had a great brunch. And it was great to see
the Palace on South Beach, where pretty much they do the drag shows.
Correct.
And there's obviously a very significant LGBTQ community on the beach, and there's a very rich LGBTQ history in Miami.
Correct.
That a lot of people don't know, but exactly the same thing. I mean,
these awesome.
Once again, these are stories that if we don't know, we miss out in a way because
Absolutely.
We're here and we miss the richness of our surroundings.
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
What kind of feedback do you get from the players and the people when you take them on these?
No, they love it because they see South Florida, they see those connections, and they see that this community cares about them, and we want to instill them to be great stewards as well too. We have a big alumni base that stays around here in South Florida, and there's a reason why for that, because I think it's because of the richness of this culture and what we have. So it's great to see our players, our cheerleaders, but also interacting with the organizations to show like we're walking in these same shoes together. Now their shoes might be a little bigger, but they're still walking in these same areas, and those kind of things. I think when your heart is in the right place, it really connects us in a way that's really true. Mm-hmm. And then you see people go back to all these different areas. It's awesome to say. So it's been great kind of having this event and having partners and people that appreciate it.
And Jason, do you see the evolution in people? Do you see how sometimes there's a click and it clicks for somebody? Do you see that happen when you're out there on these these tours?
I mean, I think when the tours, we do the same kind of thing in tailgates. We bring different groups, different intersections to the game. The game is the dessert and fun, but we kind of bring people together and talk about their commonalities. And I think when people say that, oh wow, I didn't know this organization would say the same as us, or oh, they're supporting different groups and different things. That's a click to us to say, okay, that's making a difference, because through our surveys, through the work that we see, people are now connecting to each other without us,
right.
But because,
but you were the bridge.
Yeah. We use that sports as a bridge to do it. So it's been totally amazing. And the reality is, I can't stress enough, like these are the community's programs. These aren't our programs, and the community helps guide us through it.
And as you're doing it out there, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges? Like, what do you think are some of the real community problems that you've seen, firsthand?
I mean, I think for what we see, especially now, is homelessness, and some of the things associated with that. Obviously, the financial impact of COVID-19 and really getting people back together and back businesses on their feet and creating jobs. And then we're not where we need to be in terms of inclusion and diversity. So that's going to be a continued battle, but I feel strongly that, we're going to continue to be in that fight.
Mm-hmm. What do you think are some of the ways we can do better on diversity and inclusion? Maybe some ideas that you haven't thought of, or maybe some you have.
Yeah, I think being intentional and learning and working with organizations. I know for us, there are a couple things in our handbook and policy that were outdated in terms of sexual orientation and identity until we kind of shared that and learned that we quickly, okay, well, now that needs to change. And so I think it's being intentional about it. I don't want to say give people like a long amount of time, but also let people kind of see what they have to do, and I think and learn, as opposed to saying like, okay, well, they don't have this, or I'll never want to talk to them again. So I think having that, and I think that comes through trust. I think that comes through relationships. But a lot of times
I've said, there's things like, you were just talking about the policy and guidelines, and sometimes you need to just let people sit with information like that. I'm not sure how that completely works, but I know that there are certain neighborhoods where I pull out my LGBTQ 1.0, and then there are other neighborhoods where I use 4.0. You know, like they're not, maybe they're not ready, or they're not quite there yet, and I think it's up to us, all of us in the community, to help bring people along. I think you guys do a phenomenal job of that. And I'm wondering, do you have any strategies maybe that you can share for others of how you help bring people along, so that you're not, you know, you're not isolating people, you're not alienating people by trying to be, you know, woke in that way?
I think, you know, I think it's internally talking to your staff and talking to the companies that you work with, you know, as well, and then going out in the community and listening, and also following up and having action items and continued communication. I think for us, that's what we've tried to do. There's a lot of great organizations that do that as well too, and just always trying to be a continuous learner. I mean, we're never going to be finished in this life, you know, in terms of that, but being open, listening, and then also following up, I think, are the main things.
Well, you're saying things that definitely apply to you. You're a great listener. You're very open. I think anybody in this space would be well served by trying to follow, you know, those characteristics. If you had a miraculous magic wand, this is the wand question. How would you apply it in a place like Miami or South Florida?
That's an amazing question. That's an amazing question. I mean, I know people hate dead air, you know, because I'm not talking right now. But I think no,
don't worry. Take your time.
I think it's amazing. I think, you know, looking at me, like, I talked about homelessness, I talked about those different things, just trying to dig deep and look at some of those issues and try to figure out ways to eradicate that. And I think just trying to bring people together. Let's all just, you know, let's talk about real conversations. You may not agree, you know, on everything, but that doesn't mean you have to be against each other on everything as well. Right. So I think trying to continue to try to bring these groups of people to the table, and also kind of learn the issues before you talk about them, you know, and like you said, trying to be out in front of everything. But I think that's the main thing there.
Yeah. You were hinting at it as well when you were talking about the homelessness and a lot of the other issues, but our area has pretty much like half the people are hyper wealthy and half the people are amazingly struggling.
Right.
And I think that also plays into it, you know, the economics, you know, of our community.
No question. And the education as well too. And so, you know, we definitely try to help with, you know, education and work with the school districts, work with the communities, you know, on that front. And that's the beauty and challenge of what we do. I mean, the work is there. It's going to be how do we attack it? Yeah.
Well, listen, you all do an amazing job. Thank you from me and many, many, many people. Please keep doing it. If you can do more, do more. We would too. Yep. And thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for being our guest. And, you know, we look forward to the next time.
Absolutely.
No, thank you very much, Jason.
No, thank you for having me. Thank you for everything that you're doing. You're an amazing friend and partner.
Happy to do it. And you guys are great partners. Thank you. Thanks to all of you. And please join us again next week for the Forward Miami show.